Hey y'all, welcome back to Andy's Little Homestead. I'm Andy, and this is my big ugly trench. Today we're running utilities for the off-grid chicken camper. The first one on the list, we gotta get water. We're also gonna be setting up a sewage tank for all the chicken doo-doo to go in. So it's gonna be a fun day. I got this all dug out the other day, and the dirt liked to collapse in on it, so it was a lot of fun. Plus the pins on the backhoe swing that thing all over the place, and well, honestly, I'm not very good at it. That's okay, we're most of the way down. Small problem. I don't remember exactly where I buried the water line that was going to the house. At first I thought it was exactly there-ish, and now I'm thinking it might be here-ish. We're gonna carefully dig down, try not to break anything in half. As of today, it's been 12 days since I've broken a piece of equipment. That's a pretty good run. That's as far as I want to go, trying to avoid the bright white tree root. Fortunately, I've never hit any rainbow tree roots. Those are the expensive tree roots. So we'll find it the old-fashioned way. Well, as it turns out, I didn't need to do all that because it's right here, right where I thought the first time. So, and as it turns out, I broke it when I was working on it yesterday. That's fine. I needed to cut it there anyway. There's the other half. As soon as I finished what I just said, this whole section collapsed on me. And I'm a little bit buried right now, but that's okay. We can get out of this. Now I gotta dig it up again. All right, there we go. We got it all fixed. Let's talk about everything that I did that people are gonna argue about. First off, this whole system is PEX B. The B stands for better, hope that it holds up. PEX A is better. That's one where it actually expands the pipe itself to go over the thing. PEX B has a little bit more restriction, but the system does work. And there's a couple different kinds of connectors or I don't know what they're called that you can use to put the fittings together. You've got a collar type, which is just a solid metal, and the crimper will, bring the whole thing down. And then this type is the pinch type. I'm inclined to believe that the other one's better, but you know what you can do with a pinch type? Let's just say hypothetically, and not exactly what happened. You couldn't find your PEX clamper thingy that you bought, but you happen to have a pair of hoof nippers for trimming the toenails of goats and such. Well, as it turns out, these work just as well. Or maybe they don't. We'll find out as soon as I turn the water on. So now we're gonna send the rest of this pipe down the line. I'm gonna use the old foot shovel to knock down some of the high spots. Last time I did this, I made the mistake of trying to pull one end and just drop it in the hole, and it was all spiraled up. Today we're gonna try something different by rolling that thing like a tire down the trench. It might work, I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. All right, we got her in there a solid, mostly below the frost line. So now we're gonna hook up the hydrant on the other side. All right, so this is our yard hydrant. It's set up for a 4-foot bury depth, which is what our frost line is here. And all we've got to do is put an adapter on here to go from the 3/4 inch pipe thread to the 3/4 inch PEX. Stick it in the ground, be good to go. Of course, if you're gonna do that, you have to have the right size, which I don't. So we're gonna go back to the hardware store and get the right size. All right, so we got that one hooked up. She's a little low. This part of the hole's deeper. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill in everything else except for the 2 sections that I worked on. The reason for that is, as that dirt goes on top of there, there's a fair chance that it could yank on something or maybe make something come loose. And if that happens with everything buried, I'm not gonna know. So we'll fill in everything else except for the connections before we test everything out. Now I told y'all I hadn't broken anything. I lied. I got one thing to fix real quick. At some point, the hood started catching on the lift arms there. So we're gonna do a little body work. Get back flat. There we go. Fixed it. And there we go. That's the ugliest backfill I've ever seen. The chickens don't seem to mind. We'll worry about making it pretty later. Now the thing we got to do is put the water to it and make sure everything holds up. All right, no water there. That one looks good. That all looks good. Just a minute. Hold on. And there we go. As you can see, we don't have a huge amount of pressure coming out here, and that's just because of the friction loss. We've got a 3/4 inch pipe on like a 400-foot run. We can mitigate some of that by cranking the pressure up on the well, but we can worry about that kind of thing when the chickens move in. Something that's worth showing y'all while I got everything still open here, how a frost-proof hydrant works. The valve for it isn't up here. It's down there, and there's also a weep hole so that when I shut this off, all the water that's in the pipe above the frost line will go out. Normally you're supposed to pack that with gravel, but the other two that I've got, I didn't do it. I just buried it. It's pretty coarse, dry sand, so it seems to drain out just fine. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a way without really digging into it to hook up a water line, just a hard line directly to it. This has your standard camper connections, so food grade hose hooked to there. We've got water and we've got pressure. That's not necessarily an option when it gets real cold. You want to use the onboard tank and make sure that you keep the heat on. But when you do that, you have to use the camper's water pump to make sure that you have water pressure within the system. But through the warm months, just hook a hose to that one. So we've got water set up to come in. But Andy, what about the doo-doo water that's got to come out? Well, that's going to start by digging a hole over here. How'd my hat go? So this is the hole that our holding tank is gonna go in. That's definitely not a septic tank. And some of y'all have seen this show before, but whatever. We'll be back on it tomorrow. Oh yeah, I also, made that flatter. Maybe I'll get made fun of less in the comments. That's doubtful. So this is going to be our holding tank. This is a 275-gallon IBC tote. Got it from my father-in-law in Kentucky when they moved. I'm not trying to brag and say that my wife came for money, but I think we can draw our own conclusions on that one. Anyway, I wouldn't normally use an IBC tote for that because the plastic on these is real thin. Normally the cages are, different. They're farther apart, and you don't want the pressure of the dirt to go in and collapse the tank. You can mitigate some of that by filling it up first before you backfill. But in this case, with this smaller wire cage, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. So let's get it in the hole. Well, that's not the direction I wanted it. Now we just got to run the pipe into there. We're slam full of continuity flaws today. Anyway, there we go. Now that technically is too much slope. Generally for doo-doo pipes, you only want like a 1 to 2% grade on it. That way the water doesn't outrun the poop. But it's a short run, we kind of got what we got. It'll probably be fine. Now this is just a holding tank. This is something that's going to get pumped out occasionally. So there's some things that we don't want to do from here. What we don't want to do is take a blue barrel that we happen to have laying around and cut the bottom off. We don't want to take that barrel and stick it down into the hole. And then from there, we don't want to put a sweep on the end of a pipe so that the scum layer from the top of the tank doesn't go into the dry well. And then put a pipe that connects the tank to the dry well. These are things that we're not going to do before we get everything buried. And there we go. One holding tank. So last two things that we need to do, we need to pop these slides out, and we've got a roof leak to deal with, which is super exciting. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but this one section of roof right here is kind of sagging in. It's pulling water up on top and some of it's leaking in, and that's how campers die. The roof is often a problem area. That's why you see a lot of people will do a full-blown roof over, and we might at some point, but today we got to put a band-aid on it. In addition to that, a lot of times there's problems with the slide outs themselves leaking because you've got this big surface that's got to meet up with the outside edge and keep water out. So we're going to go ahead and start with that problem. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to go into our truck and pull out our handy dandy spaghetti monster. You could go to the camper store and buy the actual gasket. That seems like the kind of thing they might overcharge you for. So we're just going to use this. Next thing we're going to do is crawl underneath it and slide out our slide outs. Unfortunately, the little gearbox that we got is kind of stripped out, but this is a problem that can be solved with a BFW. So our slides most of the way out, we're going to take our spaghetti here, it's just black pipe insulation, and split it and put it over that metal edge that's kind of right there on the inside. Then when we tighten it all the way up, it should be nice and tight to the outside, at least that's my theory, and help keep the water out. All right, so I got the first one into place, but we got a small problem. We're nice and tight down at the bottom, but we got a gap about that much at the top. Fortunately, there's a built-in system for handling this kind of thing. Out here at the end of the slide out, I've got these two bolts that go through, and then this bolt right here. So if I loosen up the two bolts and I back that one down a little bit, it'll actually drop that end of the slide and everything will meet up nicely. All right, so we got everything, we'll call it decent. It'll probably work. Now we got to deal with that dip in the roof right there. So I don't know if what my plan is going to work, but we're going to try it. I assume that what we've got up in the ceiling is basically like a bowstring truss. You got a curvy bit on top and you got a flat bit on the bottom and webbing in between them. It's probably pretty small, pretty cheap. And my guess is that at some point the bottom cord broke. We got a lot of weight from the AC above. So all I'm going to do is just like basically cut a thick old 2x6 and try and sister that bottom cord. I may jack it up against that or something. I don't know, we're making this up as we go. Noticing a pattern here? Well, that's about as quick and dirty as RV repairs go, but let's see how it looks on the outside. All right, well, it looks like we took most of the dip out of it. It's not perfect, and it ain't ever gonna be perfect. Eventually, I'll probably do a shed over the whole dang thing, but it's supposed to rain its butt off over the weekend. Hopefully this keeps that from being an issue. It's not an elegant solution. We don't really do that here. So yeah, I guess it's time for the tour now. This is where all the magic happens, or could theoretically happen. I can't predict the future. Comes equipped with a built-in TV. Pinnacle of 1998 technology right there. It's even got a VCR. Me and Carlos can watch Titanic. Make more babies. Got a bunch of closet space. Pretty standard camper bathroom. But I can stand up all the way in it. That's nice. Better than my last one. And the floor's intact. We're killing it, living the high life now. And then the rest of it, we got a nice little breakfast nook right there, and fold outs and kitchen and fancy wood grain refrigerator. Normally you gotta have a credit score above 600 for that kind of thing, but I got a deal on it. Lots and lots of storage space. It ain't perfect, but it ain't bad for $4 grand. And the best feature of it, the view. So yeah, that's it. We got water. We got a waste holding tank that's definitely not a septic tank. We're making some pretty good progress. I'm happy with it. Normally I have witty things to say at the end of these videos, but I'm tired, y'all. We got a lot of work done. I'll have updates as we go along, but for now, I'm happy. As always, I hope y'all enjoyed and I hope you learned something. I love you and God bless. What do you want? Go away.